Hello and welcome back. Mike Haggerty here alongside with Mike Clayton, and we have a real kind of a smorgasbord of coaches across the line. We have some outstanding coaches that have just returned from a pretty big trip, so we'll get into all of that in just a moment. And Mike, for our Heads Up podcast today, I'm going to let you kind of tee things up and introduce our guest. You have a very special relationship with all of these guys as well as I do, but you work very closely with a couple of them in particular. So why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest for today?
Yeah, I'm going to do what I don't do very well, and I'm just going to shut up and go right to our guest. So we've got Jess Medina, assistant coach for our women's national team. How's it going, Jess?
Going well. Just out here at our Olympic camp in Indiana. So
Holy
glad to be here.
Yeah. How many days are you out there?
About 10.
And then will you come back to Colorado before you head out to Tokyo?
No. So I'm on the road for a month because I'll go straight to our Cadet World Team Prep Camp, and then we'll go straight to Budapest. And then I'm not going to attend Tokyo now with all the schedule changes because we've got to get ready for Junior Worlds. But
Sure.
yeah, just here for the Olympic camp and getting our Olympians ready. So
You're getting some good mileage.
a lot of mileage. I live and die on the road. So.
That's awesome. And we've got Zach Dominguez. Zach's chairman of USA Wrestling's National Coaches Council, among about 1 million other roles that you play, and runs MWC in Nebraska. How's it going, Zach?
It's good here. It's not too hot yet, but as I look out my window, watching they put the flags in the grass so they're going to bury cable lines.
So that makes it, yeah.
Yeah, gives me something to look at and talk about at the same time.
Very cool. You've been real busy too, helping host a bunch of big USA Wrestling age group events and coaching yourself. How have things been for you?
Similar to Jess, living down the road this year, we've gone from U23s to a trials procedure at the Olympic camp in Atlanta with Greco guys back to Wisconsin Dells for kids nationals. And believe it or not, I'm home for like a 2-week stretch here before we hit Fargo. And then actually I go up to LOG next week for a couple of days for Junior World Camp for the Greco guys, and then into Fargo. So I don't envy Jess, but at the same time I do, because I do like traveling. I do like being a part of what's happening, and it's been a fun 2021 right now as we roll into it, halfway through it.
That's awesome. Jumping into the tornado, right?
Yep.
And we've got Kyle Martin with us. Kyle's one of the first gold certified coaches that I had a chance to work our entire program start to finish with. And Kyle's been working with our junior team, just got back from, help me out.
Mexico City for Junior Pan Ams. Yep.
That's right. Junior Pan Ams in Mexico City. And you just took a week and got to go to Zion and the Tetons.
Yeah, 13 days, Zion, the Tetons, Bryce Canyon, Yosemite, and Mesa Verde. So it was pretty neat. Pretty hot, but pretty neat. It was a good trip.
That's right. So you get your energy recharged and you're ready to get back. And
I recharged. After this, I go to our Fargo Focus Camp out at Lancaster. So about a 3-hour drive. And then we start our Fargo camp the following week. So staying busy, but local. No international travel for me for a couple weeks. So it's nice.
Nice. And you just finished your PhD.
I did.
Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun. It was tough, but I'm very, very happy that it's over.
It's like where I went to school. It's a great place to be from, not necessarily. Yeah. Mike, have you got anything to start us off with this crazy group?
Well, yeah, I think our listeners would be really, really interested to know, how do you manage all of this? How do you manage what you're doing in the real world of life, and then spend as much time on the road, working in different age categories? You all are sort of doing your own specific thing, which does demonstrate one thing for sure, that USA Wrestling does provide a lot of opportunities, right? There's a lot, whether you're a staff member or you're a volunteer coach, it doesn't really matter. There's so many opportunities inside the sport. But with that said, I would just be curious of how each of you guys sort of manage your life to make these opportunities work for you and work for your families.
I'll go first. So I'm Coach Haggerty. I'm going to use a line here that you'll understand where it comes from. The best coach I ever hired was my wife. Coach Denny taught me that a long, long time ago. And she manages the house while I'm gone. She takes care of these girls. I have 4 daughters, and gets them to and from practices. And she literally runs the home like it's our own wrestling team. And then I manage the outside. So when I show up, I usually mess things up because I want to do something different. So I've learned to just get home, unpack my bag, make sure I fall in line, and get my life going together the right way. And for actual job, if I have my computer, I can go anywhere I want. So it's not a big deal.
That's awesome.
Jess, how about you, girl? You got to tell us, how do you keep it together? You're all over the place, just like these guys are.
I don't live in the real world. I live in the wrestling world, and I love it. I don't have an animal. I don't even have a plant or anything that needs to be dusted. And that's that. I just take advantage of it because I'll only, be able to do that for an amount of time. So when there's an opportunity for me to jump on a trip or, stop somewhere for 2 days, I'm more than happy to pack my bags and tell my roommates I'll see them in a month or so, and, just have some, just be flexible. And I think it's really fun for me because, I retired in 2016 and officially started my coaching career in 2017. And I just love learning from people. I love traveling. I love meeting new coaches, new athletes, and I'm always game. And it's definitely tough to do. But, having been a senior athlete and being well traveled and just knowing a lot about different cultures and people and what it takes, I embrace the grind as a coach. So I know I can only do it for so long, but it's Olympic year, so my life's even crazier. But you're never promised tomorrow. So I always raise my hand and volunteer and just go for it.
Hey, Jess, one of the things that I've always been amazed with you is as soon as you got to USA Wrestling, with everything going on, right? Your transition into coaching from being an athlete, and your schedule was crazy, but you still wanted to do the coach education route. And you've been, whenever you have time, you'll come in, you'll say, hey, let me knock out a few more tasks. And you do a lot of mentorship with the coaches that you work with too, where you're starting to help bring them up based on some of that education. Why do you think that was so important? This is my not so gratuitous plug for coach education right now, but why has that been important for you, and how is that helping?
Yeah, so I'm still working on my silver. I'm working on it. But, I think that for myself, going through the program and, again, having been a former athlete, it's a lot easier for me to sell it to our senior athletes and to fellow coaches, especially women my age, and say, hey, this opportunity is available, because there's so much content out there and there is a lot of education, but it's wrestling specific, and sometimes people just need a friend to refer it and word of mouth and say, hey, this is something that you should do. And I am a firm believer in, networking and mentorship, especially within your communities and especially for women. So I just try my best to make time and to share what I've learned. And, it's the coaching certifications are definitely awesome pieces, and it's easy for me to refer them. And there's just so much to learn. So yeah, I'm just pass it on when I can.
That's awesome. Thanks. And Kyle, geez, not just the wrestling and not just the personal life, but the PhD and everything else going on. How have you juggled all this?
And just not to make it be like, oh, it's real convenient. Everybody in this this podcast has been important into that whole process, but it has been. I can cite specific examples in the last 5 years. Seeing Coach Dominguez give a session in Lincoln, Nebraska at a silver college, just watching Coach Haggerty, Coach Jess at the Olympic Training Center working with athletes, Coach Haggerty just picking his ear about dieting stuff. And then everything with the National Coaches Education Program, everything has motivated me. It creates passion. I think that's the thing all of us have, and why we can juggle all these things is we have passion for the sport. It's given us so much. And like Jess said, like Coach Dominguez said, we want to give back. right? And all of you guys have played a role in me being motivated to do that. Yeah, PhD is tough, but wrestling's tough. It helps us overcome those sorts of things. I got out of shape, and I see Coach Haggerty running around at the training center. He's talking about the dieting, the nutrition. I'm like, I should try it. So then I got into shape, and it made me a better coach, right? Everything that Coach Clayton throws out with the National Coaches Education Program makes me a better coach. Every year I think I get a little bit better, and I just hope it continues, because I think the more that we improve as coaches, the better it is for our athletes, and they're the key stakeholders in the sport. So anything I can do for the athletes, I'm all for, even if it means grinding through a PhD. It's fine. I can handle it. But then interactions that I see with all of you, not only with peers, but with athletes, Coach Medina, Coach Dominguez, Coach Haggerty, Coach Clayton, how you guys interact with athletes is phenomenal. And any chance I get to pick any of your brains, I try to do that, to be selfish, because I want to get better. But at the same time, if I get better, my athletes will benefit from that too. So I think it all stems down to just having passion and being interested in learning throughout your life. And that's why I can juggle all this. That's the motivation. It's passion.
Nate Carr talked about those building the relationships and how it was more important a part of the process than the end result. When you've seen, Jess and Hag and Zach, when you've seen them at the training center, because you've worked with all the elite coaches, whether it's been at a training camp or, whether you're traveling and taking our age group teams internationally, where does that translate, and how have you taken that, implemented it, and seen success with that positive relationship side? Because sometimes coaching, right, like, it's real easy to say, this is the environment we had 30 years ago, and it's still the same environment. It hasn't progressed. Maybe hasn't gone in the other way, but it hasn't progressed either.
Right. I think especially now, the way times are changing, technology's changing, you have to progress. And I think as a human being, just to keep up with how our society and civilization changes, you have to adapt. And I think you can slowly start pointing out and finding in your journey leaders, right? And they may not stand out as leaders. They might not claim that they're leaders, but you can see the people that are kind of the tip of the spear. And you almost want to say, okay, I got to grab this coattail, learn as much as I can from it before I lose the grip on it. And then I got to become my own spear, because at that point, somebody hopefully will grab onto my coattail. I'm doing the right things, and whether I proclaim I'm a leader or not, they're following that standard. And I think with the relationships you build with USA Wrestling, just through the National Coaches Education Program, that first Silver College I went to, Coach Dominguez did youth progressions, right? I was like, this is unbelievable. So then I started, I grabbed his coattail a little bit, and then I stole some of that stuff, and then I used it with youth athletes I'm working with. And then you see that development, you see the improvements that they make. But the big thing is the relationships you build are always positive. There's not that negative relationship that gets strained, and then it's like, I don't want to do this because of that relationship. Everything has been so positive. And I think that's why it's easier to progress instead of staying stagnant.
Quick question go ahead, Zach. Go ahead, buddy.
I just want to add to Kyle's point here, just because we had such good conversations while we were at Pan Am's, is that whoever you are, whether you're me or Jessica, I'm sure that Jessica and I ask all of our coaches the same things. Don't be afraid to ask the question, right? Go enjoy what you're going to hear and love it, right? Be passionate about what that person has to say. You know what? Maybe you don't use it, but now you know that, hey, I don't need to go this direction. I'm going to go this direction. So I think that's the hardest thing. And I know sometimes at tournaments, I've seen Coach Martin, I've seen Coach Jessica at tournaments, I've seen all of you guys at tournaments, and I have no problem asking you guys questions. But that's what I want to relay to everybody else. If you see me or Kyle Martin or Jessica Medina, ask a question. Go ahead. I'm pretty positive they're not going to shrug you off and say, no, we're not friends. I can't do that. So please make sure that you understand, not only do we want to learn, we want to give back to what we've learned. And I think that's important for all three of us on this call.
I think in the past, I'm going to go back historically. I believe that there was a mentality that coaches had across the country to covet information so that they were the individual that was one up on the other guy. I think those days and times have changed. I look at USA Wrestling as creating that environment of collaborative information, a share where coaches come together. Credit Mike, what you do with the coaches council. Zach, what you're doing with the coaches council. Jess, with you it being a model of a coach with the girls program, etc. Across the board, I think there's a much better perspective of a shared resource of information than there used to be. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, or if you even have noted any of that historical account, but I think coaching is different today in that respect. Some of it has to do with the technology because of video, etc. But even just the fact that USA Wrestling brings together great collegiate programs, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State, collectively, when the national team athletes train, there's definitely always those little, issues that pop up now and then. But overall, it's a collective spirit to be great in the sport, whether it's Greco freestyle, women's freestyle, whatever it might be. It's different than it used to be.
Yeah, I'll start off and say that I would second that. I think maybe there's a time and a place for that. And I would say that, if you're a coach who feels like you're constantly having to hide something or protect something, then one, right, you feel threatened. And where does that come from, right? Threatened is, your level of coaching, your character, what is it? And I think when I think about sharing with others, things that I've learned that have been really monumental in my career, I just think this is going to make the whole sport better. And if it makes the whole coaching environment better and makes other coaches think at a higher level, then I'm just going to have to elevate myself. I'm going to have to keep pushing and growing. I don't want to sit on something that I protect and feel like I need to be the coach. If I have multiple great coaches around me, then, and for me, it's a little bit different because I'm always thinking in terms of Team USA and world domination. So for me, I'm thinking I want the best coaches around. We're going to learn from each other. We're all going to help each other. When it's time to compete, we're one team. So, I think the more that you do share and kind of put that ego down and have that open, that growth mindset, I think that you can really elevate your region. We can elevate each other nationally, internationally.
Yeah, I'll jump on that bandwagon real quick, Coach.
Yep.
I 100% agree with Jessica. The better minds we can have together, the better we're going to be, and we're going to take world dominance. I like that. But really, I've had a couple conversations in the last 6 months with some coaches that were struggling with, hey, I'm losing a guy here, I'm losing a guy here. I go, oh, don't worry about it. Stay your path. But really, I guess to me, the only thing I tell them, the only thing you have to protect is the relationship with your athlete, right? So many things can be, just like you said, with on YouTube or put up on stream, every day the kid does something weird in my room. I'm like, have you been watching YouTube again? Because you got to stop that, right? That's really weird. But of course, he's doing something I've never seen, so it's weird to me. But I'm like, well, maybe I like it. I don't know. But to me, the important thing is honing in on that relationship with that athlete. Because if you can connect with a lot. The great coaches connect with tons of people. A new coach is just starting off that relationship with one or two guys, or girls, pardon me, and you can really broaden that if you start respecting the athlete, and then you guys grow together, right? The grind is in the journey, not in the end on the medal stand. Right? It's right there with that athlete, and if that's what you're focused on is how you're going to make your athlete better, or how you're going to protect that relationship, so you're not afraid to let. I know I'm not afraid to let somebody go over to wrestle with Kyle Martin for a month because he wants to go out there and train. That's a great problem, right? You have another coach that wants to use your guy to make his room better, which a lot of times people look at using as a negative thing. I'm like, no, it's great. Coach Martin is going to show him some stuff that I don't know, and then he's going to bring it back to me. So it works out good, or vice versa. I send girls out to Jessica and she sends them home with tons of knowledge. It's only going to make me better, right? And it's only going to make the whole the group of all of us as coaches, whether you're at grassroots or high performance, it's only going to make us better. And it's going to create that relationship, because I do believe for a very long time, to your point, Eggs, there was a huge division between high performance and grassroots, and they didn't know how. I don't know how they were going to get together, but I think with technology, the high performance coaches have definitely seen the grassroots coaches growing, and vice versa. And we're now looking like there's almost only one scenario as opposed to a high performance and a grassroots. Because a grassroots coach could be a very good coach. You have 3 or 4 athletes that are just amazing and go with them the whole time. It's just super awesome. And then the vice versa, when you're a high performance coach or you're in the pool and you're coaching world teams, you're taking those boys and girls that have made teams, and granted you're the guy in charge, but really you're just honing them in on what those coaches have done for them already. And you're praising that coach in front of them. Hey, your coach did a great job. That transition you use, I don't know if that's what you guys work on in your club. That's amazing. You should go back and tell your coach. That's super awesome. Keep doing it. Right? That's what the role is of the world team coach, in my opinion. Is to take them, hone them in, get them ready to go. Right? Get our jobs done as far as leaders in that scenario. But I mean, we're with these guys for 10 days at a world team. I mean, really, we're fine-tuning small things, but really the work has been done in their wrestling room. And as coaches at the top, we should be praising that young coach that put the work in with that young man or young woman, and go, hey, your coach has done a great job with you. You should really, really go further with him, or keep elevating that coach, because that's only going to make our sport better.
Kyle, you've been sort of a product of the coaches education program, and coming into your own sense of coaching and taking your career to another level. Could you share a little bit more about that, about how that started, what motivated you to make that first step, et cetera?
So I'd love to. I was a mediocre, average wrestling coach for when I got done with college, jumped into coaching. I enjoyed it, and I loved coaching wrestling, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And then some opportunities arose. I got into the National Coaches Education Program. I think it was 2015. Emailed Coach Clayton. I was like, all right, I'm ready. I want to get into this thing. Hit me with whatever you got. It was like a boulder or one of those big balls that they swing around. Like, Clayton just threw it through an email, and I was like, whoa, okay, all right. So, and from that moment, that was the best thing that has happened to me as a coach and as a person, because it just sparked some sort of fire under me that's still burning now. And it was just one thing after another. It was, okay, let's go through these silver steps. And as I'm getting in these silver steps, it's blowing me away. It's like, these little things I didn't even think about. It's not just wrestling technique. It's not just strength and conditioning. There's a whole mental side to this and how we train our athletes. It's unbelievably important. And then it just kept building and building and building. And then, I remember sitting on the couch reviewing my silver video workout with Coach Clayton. He's like, all right, so maybe come out to this development camp at the Olympic Training Center. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, right, that's a joke. No way, right? And then all of a sudden, I realize, I'm stepping on the mats at the Olympic Training Center for this development camp. And I'm seeing the guys that are there. It's all of you, Coach Smith, Coach Brands. I'm like, what am I doing here? This can't be real life. And you feel out of place at first. But obviously, like Coach Dominguez said, everybody is on that pathway, that mission for world dominance, right? I like it too. I'm going to steal that one as well. But the coaches education program is set up to where it doesn't matter what state you're in, what level you're coaching, you can apply those skills, those lessons that you learn to everything, right? Obviously, I had a real world experience with it. I hope it doesn't happen to any other coach going through the National Coaches Ed program, but the emergency action plan, something basic, right? In the bronze course, I was reviewing it to present a bronze course at Northeast Regional, and they were focusing on an emergency action plan. I was like, oh, okay, we don't have one. Let's write one up. Wrote one up as soon as I got back from Northeast Regional. We put it on the board. We go over it. All right, this is our plan. Kid's drilling, gets landed on awkwardly. He gets pale. He's sitting around. Typically, probably before that, he's saying he's fine, go home. And I'd be like, okay, go home. But that emergency action plan made him go down and see our trainer first. He goes down and sees the trainer. trainer calls 911. He has a lacerated spleen. He's gets life lighted out of our school. So just that's like the mind blowing things. It's something minor, but it's something unbelievably important to athlete safety that could sometimes get overlooked if I didn't get involved in the silver process, going through the gold steps. It could be definitely a different story. That kid's now wrestling at a college nearby and living his best life. So I can't promote the coaches education program more. Anybody who's not doing it, I think, is almost doing a disservice to the athletes that they have in their charge, because it makes you a better coach, which obviously the networking. Look at who I'm talking to today. Look at the people I've been able to watch sessions from and just pick their brains. It's fantastic for me, but it's even more important for the athletes.
That's an amazing endorsement for sure, Mike. I'm sure that your part in this is Clayton has been a big role in moving this needle. For me, I've watched how we've seen some of these younger coaches, and I speak of Kyle and many of the others that have come through the program of recent that are now taking these trips and going outside the country and a part of our USA Wrestling developmental team. So that's kudos to you as well. Jess, can you bring us up to speed a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the point of where you're a coach at the Olympic Training Center, and so give us a little historical account, if you would, a little bio.
Okay, so I retired in 2016. I was an athlete with USA Wrestling for about a good 10 years between the collegiate and senior scene. So when I retired, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, because I had spent the majority of my 20s training and competing. And, along the way, I had a lot of people encourage me to get into coaching. They thought I'd be a great coach and had a lot of really positive things to say. And so for myself, I think one piece that was important was after I retired, I really had to go through the retirement phase and transition and really figure out who I was as a person outside of wrestling and athletics and what I wanted to do moving forward. And I think that really, that time frame helped me to, feel proud of what I did in my career. Although I didn't achieve every goal that I set out to do, it helped me to kind of put that to rest so that I could really focus on the next step. And I say that because I think that's really important, whether you're a high school athlete, a collegiate athlete, or a senior level athlete, because, if you're always looking back at the things that you didn't do, I really feel like you cannot be your best. You can't coach to the best of your ability. So I think by taking that time to transition and retire, I started coaching at Beat the Streets, and it's interesting kind of talking about it recently with someone else. I had been thinking about coaching, and I wanted to just kind of coach part-time, and I kind of had asked myself why, and I think it was because for me as an athlete, it's such a grind. You're traveling, you're training, you don't get to see your family very much. You rarely take vacations. Your life is, in some areas on hold for this one goal. And so for me, I kind of stayed away for a little bit, and I just thought, I'm going to coach, with a club team and youth and kind of get my, feet wet, but really not commit to it. And I had thought about going back to school for my MBA. And so then I ended up coming to a crossroad in my career where I had to decide, what I wanted to do moving forward. Do I want to participate in the wrestling community completely, immerse myself, have an impact, and go full time? Or do I want to have a full-time job in another, environment and aspect to impact? And I just thought, I'll have more of an impact in the wrestling community. I know, and that's the community I love. So for me, I ended up taking a position at a D3 program at Ferrum, and that was my first time being a head coach of, a women's program. And it's funny because I literally told myself I would never coach women's college athletics. And that's coming from being on a team of like 50 women. So I'm like, yeah, I'll coach, but I'm not coaching college. I'm not coaching, a women's college team. And so I found myself coaching at Ferrum for 2 seasons. And then, I started coming back to the USA Wrestling program and volunteering. So in 2018, I took our cadets to Pan Am's. I was at the developmental camps. And again, it was so easy to jump in when I was ready because I had been a part of the program. I knew Terry Steiner, Clarissa Chun, and I was happy to have this kind of shallow commitment with USA Wrestling and then go back to my program. And then Terry Steiner had approached me, and he told me that he wanted me to apply for the position and that he thought it would be a great fit. And for myself, that wasn't my goal, to coach with the national team, to coach with Team USA. I felt like I'd been there and done that, and I was really trying to develop my own style of coaching and what I wanted for my career. So when he approached me and kind of asked me that, I had to reflect on like what I was really trying to do as a coach in my career. And the whole reason I came back to this community was because I wanted to make it a better place than what it was for me. It wasn't a bad space, but I know that there's a lot of things that could be better, and I lived it. And I feel truly that I can be an influence and help others, to, other coaches to make it a better place. And, I ended up taking the job and going into my 3rd year here at USA Wrestling. And it's, again, when I was an athlete, I was like, I'm never working for USA Wrestling. And now here I'm working for USA Wrestling. So I eat my words a lot of the time. So I try to be careful what I say. So, yeah.
Jess, you talked about this environment, right? You want to create this environment. You want to create this style. And while maybe it wasn't, outrightly negative, some of the things that you had to deal with, there were still some things that you had to deal with. Do you mind sharing some of those things? Because I'm sure a lot of our coaches out there may not even be aware that the environment they're creating may not be as inclusive or as welcoming or as positive as maybe our athletes need it to be, because the sport's so damn tough anyway, right?
It is. Yeah, I would say, I think that there's a lot of opposition with the mindset of wrestling. It's so, like you said, it's so tough. It's already a small community. And, I think that we really pride ourselves on who's the toughest and who's the last person in the room. And if you're not tough enough, get out. And I'm like, that's going to kill our sport. We need to be inclusive. And I think that it's great, right, to challenge yourself and be the tough. Like, we've got that competitive edge. Like, believe me, I want to win and I want to be that person. But at the same time, I can't exclude other people from that. And I think that as coaches, like, you can't look at someone and judge them and say, okay, I don't know if this person has what it takes, to make the team or to make it a season. Because if my coach would have done that to me, I would have never wrestled it as far as I did. And honestly, that kind of was the situation for me when I first started wrestling. And it's a little bit different because I was a female and there were no females on the team. But I look back and I think that it's like I had to really prove myself just to even have the opportunity to try out for the team. And I think, what if I was in great shape? I was, an athlete from a very young age. My dad coached me. So I would say that for a high school girl was, like at the top and elite level. And that's how I made the wrestling team. But if not, if I was just a normal high school athlete who wanted to join the wrestling team, I would have never been able to join. So I would say that we definitely need to be more inclusive in the wrestling community because we need those partners, we need those people, and we hear so much about the benefits of wrestling beyond the performance. And it's like, why wouldn't we want to give that to boys and girls, whether, regardless of what they look like or whether they can win a match. I won my first year, I won 1 match and, look where I'm at now. So I think that performance is an indirect, I think, reflection of what we can really accomplish. It's like, I think that we just need to give more people chances. And, honestly, I try to make practices more fun. I try to do more creative things. We'll do a dance warm up, crying out loud. I'm like, all right, we're going to do a 2-step. But, I think those are the things that I like to do that are going to keep the kids around and having fun. And again, it's not part of that old mentality. Like, you're going to do a hard 45-minute warm up and then we're going to get practice started. It's like, kids don't want to do that today. And honestly, I wouldn't either. So I used to, but I wouldn't now. So yeah.
That's awesome. And Kyle and Zach, one of the things that Jess said that I really like, she's like, I had to know who I was. And once I knew who I was, then I knew which direction I could go in. How important is knowing who you are and what your values are? How important is that to each of you as a coach stepping in the room every day too? Because I know how much that means to Jess, and you can hear that in her story.
I'll go first here. I can actually tell you the moment I knew I was a coach. And unfortunately, it happened at a great loss of a program. When UNO got dropped in 2011, I was happy coaching at college. I was an assistant coach. I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. My brother was on the team. And I had been coaching for several years prior to that, freestyle Greco with the state of Iowa, and then freestyle Greco with Nebraska. When they dropped the program and I couldn't go to St. Louis with Coach Denny, I literally said, I'm not done coaching. I really, really want to coach. And in 2011, I started MWC, which means I had to go all the way back down to the 5- and 6-year-old young boys and girls that were definitely going to make me turn gray and pull my hair out. But man, when I started it felt good. It was awesome. And I knew at that point, I identify as a coach and I was forever going to be a coach. I love wrestling. I love performing. I love being out there at the big stage. Made a couple medals here and there, but man, I really love coaching way more than I ever did when I was actually a wrestler. And it was very relevant to me. I think it was like 2013. I had I met a young man by the name of Connor Konopik, who really good wrestler on his way to Iowa State. And I remember he went like 0-2 at a tournament, and he came over. He goes, "Man, it was a tough day today, Coach." I go, "You're right." He goes, "But I still love wrestling." And then I'm like, "Oh, I didn't think you ever weren't going to love wrestling." I figured out it's hard. It's hard to love something that wants to beat you up so bad, which is how I came to be a coach. Part of a great program. We lost the program, but it made me want to be a better coach. Here I am now on this wonderful podcast and enjoying, every moment of this conversation. And then the second answer is I have come from a string of really awesome coaches. From when I was second grade, I can name every coach I ever had that I would consider my primary coach moving forward. 2 of them have passed on. One of them still coaches here in the area. One's retired now, and the other one is my dad, who's obviously now coaching, or he handles my nephew. He just makes sure he's on time and on place for practice. So that's his job. I do the coaching on that end, but my dad would have been the last one.
That's awesome.
So I think a little bit of a similarity with Coach Dominguez, but also some contrast there. In 2014 or 2015, kind of got out of coaching for a short period of time, just a matter of weeks. And in those matter of weeks, it's like just something's out of tune, something's not right. And then you realize it when you step back into a wrestling room. And it could be with two athletes or, a room filled with 40. Everything changes. Your mood changes. Your mentality changes. It's almost like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And unlike Coach Dominguez, I can't rattle off my coaches from youth all through. I know my dad, who never wrestled before in his life, was fundamental in me participating, but he never was overbearing. He never, because he didn't know what he was doing either. But the coach that really did it for me was my high school coach. He's passed. He's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, but he didn't even. The thing that I picked up from him, and this is where it really made sense to me, is in high school I didn't really know what I wanted to do with life, and I don't know many high schoolers that do. But senior year, he took me to Gettysburg National Military Park. He gave me a tour. And this guy knew everything, every nook and cranny of the battlefield. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is what I like. This is finally something in school that I like. And that's when I got into history. But he was my wrestling coach, right? And then that was the connection. And then every time I step into a wrestling room, it doesn't matter what type of day you're having, it improves, drastically improves. The stress, the drama from earlier in the day, it's gone. You don't even remember it, right? And it's just, you know that's where you belong. And I think that's what Coach Jess and Zach are kind of saying and leaning to is you finally find that place where it's not your home, but it's your home. It's where you belong. And I think that's where it really made sense and came to fruition these last few years for me is I don't know what else I would do with myself if it wasn't there. I wouldn't feel right. Something would seem off.
I've got a quick question for you guys. And again, I think for every coach, it's going to be a little bit different for sure. But what's your guys' take on what it means to be successful? I mean, how do you define success in your own personal terms in regards to your coaching? We've got Kyle at the high school level and then also coaching now internationally. Zach, like you said, you started went back to fifth grade after coaching some college and now running your club. Jess, you're at the international level now. But how do you guys typically define success and how do you come to terms with this in your own mind dealing with wrestling is one of those sports where there's so much adversity, so many tough elements to it. How do you define success? What makes you successful?
I'll go first. To me, if you would ask me this question 15 years ago, I'd have said to you, man, I don't know. I only had 3 guys on the podium today, so I can't be too successful. So I've learned a lot, but I will tell you, to me, the definition of success is who these young people turn out to be, right? I want to be able to conversate with them when they're older, and they can reach back in their memory and go, man, coach, we might not have won everything, but man, we did it right. Right? He's married, wife, kids. And success is such a broad term. I mean, one of them could be a millionaire. The other one could just love his family life, or he's returned to coaching, or whatever it may be. As long as they're happy, that to me is what success means. They moved from our sport, took the values, the lessons, and put them into their everyday life, and they're now winning at life, and they get to come back and share that with you. Like, I really think that's my determination of success.
Love it, Zach. Jessica, how about you? How would you define success in your coaching career?
I think that it may look a little different depending on, where I'm at. And I would say especially it's changed a little bit in the role I'm in at the national level, but it's all foundational in the sense of my number one goal is to serve the athletes. And so if I serve the athletes, then I did my job, right? I feel successful. And so that's such a tough, I think it's not a black and white answer. It's evaluating the group I'm with, what they're going through, where the program's at, what the goal is for the competition. So it's kind of ever changing for me. And so I'm always vigilant with who I'm working with and, what are we trying to accomplish? And, with my job, I think for myself, I've really had to navigate through, okay, I see our best athletes in the country. I have an influence. I have a short time with them. They're competing at the highest level, which is, probably very stressful for them in this time. And, their main goal is to perform. And so how am I going to meet that need? And how am I going to make an impact? And those are the two things that I think about when I ask myself what I want to, achieve as a coach in this role. And so, overall, I would say for me, I really want the athletes to know that, one, that we care about them beyond their performance and that their value does not come from their performance. I mean, you've got USA on your back. Yeah, the expectation is to win. We're here to win. And you can do that. But beyond that, you are still a person and you're still part of this community. And as a coach, you know, they need to know that we care about you, win or lose, and we're here to help you be the best athlete you can be. So that to me, if they feel that way, you know, I feel similar to Coach Dominguez. If they have that lasting impact with them, that coach really cared about me, regardless of what I did on or off the mat. We made memories. I had great experiences that shaped my life and my perspective. Then I feel successful.
Jess, I have one follow-up for you, because you mentioned that your ultimate goal is to serve your athletes, and I think that's a tremendous perspective. Do you feel like you personally have a bandwidth of what that looks like as far as how far your reach can go with the number of athletes that you deal with? Working at a national team where you train a certain group more often than others, but you're also trying to reach out to different clubs, RTCs, et cetera. Is there a certain amount of a bandwidth that you feel like you kind of max out at? How do you feel with that?
I'm still trying to figure that out, because I'm definitely a proponent of, you know, having a balance, a work-life balance. And so I do as much as I can. I feel like I'm still figuring out the structure to that. But right now, you know, kind of the way I think about it is, okay, I'm starting from the top. We've got our Olympians and senior world team members, senior national team, and I want to make an impact there and serve them. But then when it's time, kind of switch over to our age group, whether I'm with juniors and cadets. So I try to be where I'm at, you know, and be present in that moment. And then, you know, when I'm not doing that, I'm trying to think about, okay, I want to reach out to our women's state directors, or I want to reach out to our female coaches, or I want to work with boys. And so now I'm doing a clinic on my day off with some, you know, 15 teenage boys. So like for me, I really feel like my impact is unmeasurable. It's just, you know, I'm still figuring out how often to do that, and when and who, where, how. But for me, I'm just kind of like, be where you're at, and the group that you're with, give them your full attention. And if you do that, that ripple effect will happen.
Very good. I'll come back to you in 5 years and ask you that same question, and we'll see where it's at. But that's tremendous. That's some really good insight, no doubt. Kyle, how about for you?
So I get an interesting vibe with high school wrestling, and then coaching with our national teams for cadets, and then having the opportunity to travel internationally. I try not to put a definition to success. I think it's one of those words that can explode if you try to put any type of definition on it with athletes. You know, this past season, we had an athlete that was in the state finals in Pennsylvania, and in the same practice, we had multiple first-year, never stepped foot on a mat wrestler. So I have, you know, a 2-hour period, 3 to 5 o'clock. How are we going to find success for, you know, a state finalist and then somebody who doesn't know how to tie their wrestling shoes? And they both have different definitions of success. So I think our job as coaches is to give them any resource, any guidance, anything to help them find that road to their definition of success. One kid's idea of success this year was he just wanted to get in on a shot on one guy in a match. That was it. Didn't have to finish it, nothing, right? So that was it. That was his definition of success. We're doing everything we can to get him to that leg. And he was pumped up when it happened, right? Him getting turned over and pinned immediately after didn't mean anything. He came off smiling. And you get to enjoy those successes too, right? And then at the same time, you get the heartbreak from a kid that did everything right throughout the year, trained hard, went above and beyond, did all the right things, and just comes up, you know, 1 point short in the state finals. But you got to celebrate all those little things through. And it's unique with coaching high school that you can have such a diverse population of athletes in your room. So you can't, as a coach, I try not to define what my success is. It's whatever theirs is. Whatever their success is, I'm going to do everything I can to get them to that point. And if I can help them find that, then okay, I'm doing the right things. But then, you guys switch gears because you go from those high school rooms where you get those first-year athletes, those fresh, not experienced athletes. Then you go to like our camp this weekend and next weekend where it's all Fargo qualifiers. They're all hunting for that stop sign in Fargo. My expectations need to change. They need to adjust for that, because nobody's going to be happy if they get in on a leg attack and then get pinned at Fargo. Right. None of them are going to be pleased with that. So I can't set that as my, that was a great job. You got in on that leg attack, but you got pinned after. So I can't be saying that this weekend or at our Fargo camp. So I think that's one of the cool things about coaching. And Coach Dominguez, Coach Medina are fantastic with that, watching them be so dynamic with how they coach each athlete. And that was one thing I really picked up on. And I had a talk with Coach Dominguez in Mexico City after the tournament. I said, what can I do to get better? And one of the things is junior level athletes are different than cadets, and cadets are different than U15s, and U15s are different than high school athletes. So I have to, it was something I really appreciated, because that's something I'm going to get better at. And it ties into this. What is success? To me, I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out for me. But as long as I'm helping every athlete kind of get to their success, no matter what it is, then I'll be able to sleep at night knowing I'm doing those things.
It's interesting. I was asked that question just recently on a podcast myself, so I had to throw that at you guys just to see what you would say. And my response is that I think our job is to help facilitate the buy-in for our athletes. Because every athlete buys in at a different point. And Kyle, you emphasize that with what you just said. You've got some guys that are learning to tie their shoes, and that's the glory and the pleasure and the pain of coaching high school athletes in particular, that you just don't really know when that fact is. But if we can help expedite that process of getting those guys to buy in at some point in their career, so that they really take a big bite out of the apple and begin to love the sport, coaching becomes easy with those guys. I had some very fortunate opportunities in Blue Springs with guys, and it's like, how do you coach a guy like Louis Caputo, or how do you coach a guy like Dom Bradley? It's like, well, you help them find their passion and then get the hell out of the way,
right?
Because those guys, they're so self-motivated, they're going to find their opportunities and move forward. But some great responses. Hey, Mike, I'm going to let you tee up the last question. So this is our final round right here. Last question to circle through the group. Mike.
I like it. No pressure.
No pressure.
Speed round. I love and so because of where you guys have gone, long story short, I had gone to a funeral years ago. Coming back through the airport, it was a rush, right? You had to fly in, fly out, literally went from the graveside services to the airport. I had this much water, just an inch of water in the bottom of my water bottle. And I go through the security, and of course the security guy says, "Hey, you got anything in here?" And he was just being a real, kind of, he was doing his job, sure. But I said, before it even came through, I said, "Hey," I apologize. There's about an inch and a half of water in the bottom of that bottle. I'll drink it in front of you. We can throw the water out. But I said, it's a nice flask. Like, I don't want to throw it away. It's like $35. And the guy goes, "You can go back out and wait in line again, or you can just let us throw all of it away here and we'll destroy it." And I'm just sitting there, and I kind of, my initial reaction was like, barked at him, right? And I'm like, I said, "You must have got picked on in high school. Now you've got a badge," And I'm sitting there like, I'm like, so, and I realize in that moment that we all get to that level of frustration. But how do we take what we see and think is negative, and how do we turn that into a positive? And so I said, I just have to walk around for a little bit. I started breathing, right? Because you got to breathe, drink water, and eat. If you're ever in trouble, are you breathing? Are you drinking water? Are you eating? Start with the basics. And I realized in that moment, what I needed to do was flip this story around. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home. I'm going to buy a brand new flask for $35. And since I'm at USA Wrestling, I'm going to have everybody at USA Wrestling sign this bottle. And at the camp we do back at my high school every year, I'm going to give that flask to a kid who needs it. Maybe not the best kid, but a kid who just for some reason needs a little motivation. And they'll have all these signatures, and they may not even know the names or know how to read them. But it changed that negative situation into something that I could give forward to be positive. How do you guys find the patience when all seems to be going crazy to remember your values and to head into that direction that you know will build relationships instead of tearing them down?
Ooh, you're a jerk.
Yeah.
I'll go first.
As we prepare to go to Fargo.
Yeah. Nobody put video cameras in the tunnels where the coaches go to the athletes, right? I said this earlier. I have had a really good life of coaches. I learned a lot of things from them when I was younger, and I put that forward. And I think for me, if I know I'm trying to be a better person, I have to make sure that lesson leads to being a better person. So after in a dark place, right, whatever that dark place becomes after a match loss or at the airport with TSA or the people that I'm around, because if I'm traveling with athletes, right? So your presence is important. It's important, how you act, what you're doing, because they're going to see that, they're going to take notes, and they're going to move forward. If I can turn any, like you said, Mike, any dark scenario into a positive, right? So that's for me, the primary would be after a match that was like, man, you were up 8-0 and you just got pinned in a headlock. Now, I did that to a lot of people myself, but that's because it was lefty. But it happens to a lot of wrestlers, right? It always seems to happen. So I always ask them, hey, tough go, 5 minutes. I'm gonna come back. We're gonna talk about the lesson we learned. And whatever that lesson is, I gotta cue it up, like what maybe where his feet wrong, where his hands wrong. But really, I'll try to relate it back to something that's an everyday thing. Hey, did you get up and eat enough breakfast today? Was your brain turned on? It's not necessarily about the match, but more or less about the way you're living that day and the way you're moving forward. And tomorrow the sun will rise, and tomorrow you'll be able to eat a little bit more breakfast. You'll be able to do a little bit better, and you're going to be better because of this. You're never going to be worse. You're only going to be better. And I always tell the boys and the girls, I go, if we don't learn this lesson, we will repeat it, and we don't want to repeat bad things. I go, because we know better than that. We're smarter, we're stronger. Every day we're better because of that. So I go, learn this lesson. It's a good lesson. I don't want anybody to learn hard lessons. I want everybody to learn good lessons. And I never talk about a hard lesson learned because nobody wants to hear that either. So I continually repeat, this is a lesson. We need to learn it. And how do we relate it back to what we're going to do tomorrow? And they come up with an answer. And I don't ask for the answer right away, but because they're still upset. They're emotional creatures, right? They're young. And then I say, listen, the only rule I have in my room is if I ask you what the lesson is, and you come up with an answer and how you're going to apply it to tomorrow, at some point during that day, I need to hear your answer. So that I know that they had to think about it and they had to think, tomorrow's going to be better and here's why. Then we move forward. So at any point during the day, I got to hear back from them. And I don't care if it's a text later on that night. They got to get it back to me. That's the standing rule in our world, or in my world at MWC.
That's awesome.
With high school athletes and even some of the cadets and things like that, life experiences sometimes to them seem like their end of the world, absolute nightmare experiences. So I think putting that into perspective for them as much as we can. Tough losses, it's always the time after. With high school athletes, you give them that time to let them kind of bring that emotion back down, and then you have that conversation with them a lot, just like Coach Dominguez does. I always try to put it into perspective for them. As much as we have passion for wrestling and love the sport, it's wrestling. There are bigger fish to fry in our world, right? Kids in high school, they have their own lives going on. They have family issues. They have school issues, all of these things. So you want to make wrestling that experience that's as positive as possible, because for some of them, it might be the only thing that is positive for them. So I think when you get into those aggressive, like frustrating situations, you got to wrap a big perspective around it. You lost a tough match, right? Well, we're going to have delicious meal as a team after this, and that's going to be awesome. We're going to hear these stories from everybody on the team. We're going to laugh. Today, at the end of the day, we're going to be laughing. This is going to be a memory. We're going to learn from it, like Coach Dominguez said, but we can't focus on it and just make it the pinnacle of our life at this moment. right? Because if we start blowing up those real small situations, every time that happens, I think it creates an environment where they don't want that to happen again so badly that it starts to affect everything else that they do, right? And it could be just, one of the big things in wrestling is taking risk. So if we keep blowing up these instances where they take risk and they get beat and it's heartbreaking, and then we're on them about it, and we're like, you shouldn't have done this. They're not going to try again. They're not going to take those risks again. And then when we stop taking risks, we're not going to grow. And the whole idea is we want to continue to grow, whether it's in wrestling, whether it's in school, whether it's in life. We want to develop, Olympians in wrestling, obviously, but also Olympians in life. No matter what they decide to do. So whenever it gets frustrating, I think we have to wrap it around perspective, and perspective needs to be put into those situations to let them know that, it sucks right now and it hurts. Man, I guarantee it hurts. I've been there, but it's going to get better. This is just a small speed bump in the entire journey. And I think that's the thing that needs to be enforced with, especially like middle school, high school athletes that are developing.
Yeah, I would say that I'm in agreement with, both coaches, and I'm going to maybe speak to it more from the coaching perspective, since I'm sure a lot of coaches are listening. I think in the moment of frustration, whether it's because of your athletes, because of life, or because of the seasons, whatever it is, I'm a really emotional person, so I definitely feel a lot of those frustrations, or the highs and the lows, a ton. So for myself, I just try to be really practical. And after I kind of get through the initial frustration, anger, being upset, whatever those things are, I try to take a step back and I ask myself, did I do the best I could in this situation? If I didn't, what could I have done better for next time? Because it's done, you can't go back and do it. And did I give it my best effort? And at the end of the day, what can I control? I cannot control how a parent feels, how my coworker feels, how my athletes feel. All I can control is myself and how I respond to this situation. And so a lot of the times, when you're initially frustrated, whether it's, okay, my athlete, underperformed, or they, completely broke my trust, whatever it is that's frustrating, I just try to say, that's out of my control. They have freedom to make a choice. How do I want to continue this relationship with them, right? That's what I can control, or parent. How can hey, this happened, I don't know why. And usually too, once I kind of get past the initial feelings of frustration or just in a tough time, I try to put myself in someone else's shoes. I'm like, what could this parent be feeling right now? They're probably scared and upset and angry and disappointed. Okay, I can sympathize with that. So how do we work through this? Or athlete, why did they do A, B, and C? I have no clue what's going on at home. So maybe let me put myself in the teenager's shoes for one day and try to understand their perspective. And so I think it really helps you to take your focus off maybe frustration of that moment, and to look, like both coaches said, the bigger picture. And at the end of the day, I can only control so much. And that gives me a lot of sense of relief of like, well, I did my absolute best, and next time I'll do A, B, and C better, but it's over and I have to move on and learn from the situation. So, and I try to teach that to my athletes as well. It's not in my control. I can't control everything. So just got to let it go.
Coach Haggerty, I think we've got a lot of buckets of gold that we dug today.
Oh my goodness. It's been absolutely fantastic. Jess, by the way, it looks like you're about ready to break out in carpool karaoke right now. So I was waiting for you to start singing, but that just kind of shows the nature of, everybody's moving and busy, and there's just this damn coaching career is nonstop. But man, we sure do thank you guys for taking the time. And like Mike says, a wealth of knowledge and great perspective. And I think the one thing that most people, I hope that they can gather from, if nothing else during these interviews, is that you guys are not only great coaches, but great people, and that means a lot to our community and our coaching our constituents that are dialing in and listening to our broadcast. We want to make sure that they understand the real person behind the coach. So we so much appreciate everything that you guys have brought in today. I think this is going to be a real special and well-received broadcast. So Zach, certainly, again, thanks. It seems like we spent a lot of time together. We were on a call last night with our Coaches Council, and we'd love to have you back again. We're running a little long in the tooth, but we'd like to have you come back, certainly, and talk a little bit more about our Coaches Council and what that brings to the table, since this is sponsored by the Coaches Council, our Heads Up podcast. So, Kyle, and again, it's always a pleasure to see you, man. You're a special guy that has worked so hard in the sport and just continued to do great things. So thank you for what you bring to the table, Jess. It's been a pleasure to hear your perspective on everything and working with the girls. And whenever you're ready to sing, go right ahead, and you can take us out. But Mike, thanks for everything too. We appreciate everybody jumping on today, and we look forward to our next opportunity. And if you guys, anybody needs to reach out to any of our coaches, Jessica and certainly Zach and Kyle, you guys, I know, are very accessible through email and personal contacts. So somebody needs to reach out to you guys. I'm sure that we'll make that available. We need to start adding that into our show notes and make sure that people can reach out and get a hold of you guys. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll look forward to our next broadcast. But for right now, we'll sign off, and thanks and so long.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.